When you guys were forming RANU, did you ever think that it would be through force of arms?
So we realized that at the end of the day, you had to fight. The UN was always filled with our documents, but we knew this would not take us anywhere.
Why was Uganda dangerous for you?
They made us scapegoats all the time of all the failures in Uganda.
But why would it be dangerous for your organization?
Because we were friendly to the government of Habyarimana here. Our only big supporter was the Burundi Embassy.
Which is so interesting.
Museveni made it easy for us.
What do you mean he made it easy for you?
When he went to the bush and our people joined him, it became easy to recruit and get free training rather than send them to Libya and Algeria and what.
What is the relationship between RANU, the Rwandese Alliance, and RAF?
The Rwandese Refugees Welfare Foundation is a foundation we set up to use it as a training and recruiting ground. Remember when we met the late Kabila?
Which Kabila?
Kabila the father. He told us he had a movement and we agreed that his movement would cooperate with us. I can confirm today that Kabila's promise to us was fulfilled up to the end. Before Fred went out, this is what he told us. Stop making the organization an academic organization. He said, send us soldiers. There's no power on us, I said, that would have defeated the RPF.
This is the very, very best. I introduce the very, very next. Big deal. You know this is the big league. Unsanga mumihanda ya chigari mega big fish. Word on the street turakaze. Habari gani mumeze mte. Yute shimi mana kuva honda muchiye. If you want the long form, come close and rabule. Wait, what?
The long form.
What did he say?
The long form.
What?
The long form.
The long form. The long form. This conversation is brought to you by Akagera Medicines, a biotech company that is majority owned by the Rwandan people. Akagera Medicines is not only committed to expanding access to healthcare, but also supporting conversations that inform, educate, and empower. Learn more about Akagera Medicines by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting their website at akageramedicines.com. Today, many young Rwandans have grown up in a country with a passport, a government, and a place in the world. But there was a time when hundreds of thousands of Rwandans had none of these things. They lived as refugees across East and Central Africa. They built lives in exile. Their children grew outside the country they called home. And year after year, a question remained unanswered. Would they ever return? My guest today on the Long Form podcast is Tharcisse Karugarama. A lawyer and former Minister of Justice, Tharcisse Karugarama was one of the founding members of the Rwandese Alliance for National Unity, RANU, the political movement that would later evolve into the Rwandan Patriotic Front. But before he became a minister or a judge, he was a refugee. He lived through the experience of exile, witnessed the frustrations and debates that shaped a generation, and was among those who helped build one of the most consequential movements in modern Rwandan political history. This conversation is not about what happened before 1990. It's about the years before, the years of exile, the formation of political consciousness, the birth of RANU. This conversation is about the ideas, hopes, disagreements, and experiences that eventually laid the foundation for a movement that would change Rwanda's history. Mzee Karugarama, welcome to the Long Form podcast.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you sitting here with me and my team, welcoming me to your office. I want this conversation to really give us a sense of where Rwanda has come from, where the Rwandan people have come from, to help us further understand where we are and how we got here. Let us start with, let's go back to 1952 when, as you told me, you were born. You were born in a Rwanda that was under Belgian rule, that still had the semblance of a monarchy. What do you remember about that Rwanda?
I want to say that at the time, I was very young. I did not know very many things, but there are things that I can remember. During that period, the most important event in that area, which I can remember very well, is the day I became a refugee. That is in 1961.
1961.
I was then a young man, maybe 9 years old. 1952 to 61 is what, 10 years? About 10 years. So that day is the day I became a refugee, and I remember it very well. 3 p.m. in the afternoon in Bugarura.
And where's Bugarura?
In Muhura, the time Bugarura Muhura, currently in Gatsibo district in the eastern province. At the time it was Muhura, Bugarura. Then that day in the afternoon, around 3 p.m., I saw an old man running. Very old. He was called Damiani Nyakagabo. He was running. I said, "Oh, where you, small boy, you come. Your father is being killed." I said, "What?" He said, "No." So, short afterwards, I saw people running after my father, shooting him with arrows, and then others beating him. So I saw my father collapsing in that afternoon, around 4 p.m. I saw him collapsing.
Who are these people?
These are revolutionists of the day. See, that's the time they were chasing away part of the population of from Rwanda. They were burning houses everywhere. They were taking cattle. That was the first exodus of refugees that I saw and that I was part of. So I ran, but I saw my father falling down, and I assumed he was dead.
You were running towards him?
No, I was running away from him because he was running, being shot at, and so I was avoiding him. How could I get close? But the old man told me, come, run. So I ran to him. Then when we reached up, very interesting, there was a burning house. So I ran to the house, and I found there potatoes.
A burning house?
Yeah, in the compound. So I picked some banana leaves and picked some potatoes and started eating. So for me, the chaos that was going on, the killings that were going on, was not part of me.
Even though you saw your father being attacked?
I saw him being attacked, but then I saw some food and I settled down, which was queer. The old man came and said, let's go because they're going to kill us. I said, why? Then he told me, he gave me his pipe and asked me to put fire on the pipe. That's why I remember that day very, very well. The day I became a refugee. So I put on the pipe for him. I choked up, got choked, said, let's run. So that's the day I also started smoking.
At 9 years old?
Yes, so I put on the pipe for him. He said, then I puffed. So I started smoking that day. I became a refugee. And then we ran down somewhere. If you know the eastern province, there's a place currently occupied by some of our people, Kugishanga, Chakanyonyombia. So there were some friendly families who hid us that night and then helped us to cross over to Kiziguro mission.
Where's your mother? Where are your siblings? Where are your aunties? Where are your uncles?
At that time,
Yes.
they were home, but scattered. Because as I said, they were burning all houses of the Tutsi population and people that were associated with some political activities. I think my father was a politician of some kind. So these guys that were leaders of the political groupings, Inar, Reder, they were being targeted for extermination at the time. So, as I was saying, that night, they helped us cross to Kiziguro Mission. Kiziguro Mission is still there. It is also home to genocide survivors' memorial tombs. So that's where I had my education, at Kiziguro. First year of schooling under the teachers who are still living apparently, like Dorothea Ruhezamihigo. She's an old lady, but she taught me at the time. Then I met her in the refugee camps in Uganda.
Let me understand this. So you flee to this mission
Alone, without a father, without a mother.
do you ever meet your mom again? Do you ever see them
Yes,
again?
but much later. Much later. So I went with that old man. The missionaries were receiving us at Kiziguro Mission. So I went and stayed in Kiziguro Mission.
As an orphan, pretty much.
Sort of. Now, my father had been beaten very badly, but he hadn't died. So 2 days later, they brought him to the mission as well. My mother had run in a separate grouping, but I think about 4, 5, 6 days later, also was at Kiziguro.
How did you feel when you saw your dad, who you thought had passed away?
You know, I think I was stupid at the time, or I didn't think much about it because he was there, he was beaten, I could see it. But there were very many other people that were wounded, that were in very bad shape. For him, he was admitted into the hospital. But I had some other excitement because there, the next day, nobody woke me up to go and graze the calves or the cows or burn the cow. No, pretty much like look after the cows in the morning, very early. Nobody woke me up to do. And then around 10 or 9 in the morning, there were other children. So we would play these games, run around. So you felt some kind of freedom from the cows, from the waking up very early, and exciting. And then they were giving us rice, yellow rice with coconut oil or what. It was very exciting. I think that's probably one of the happiest moments in my life. The whole day playing, nobody's asking you. Then at the end of the day, rice that is yellow, that is very sweet and nice. So in a way, you're having fun when everybody is in trouble. So about 2 weeks later, we were all transferred and sent to Mbarara.
Wait, do you remember the month?
Around September, October, 1961. September, I think, but September was the day of the burning of the houses, the destruction, the killings. But I think October was the time, or November, we were moved from Kiziguro in lorries. Very exciting to move in a vehicle and clapping everywhere. So for me as a child, I was having fun when everybody was grieving. The old people are in trouble. For me, it was fun, playing with other children, jumping the ropes, playing some funny games. The whole day free. Nobody's asking you to go and look after the cows. Or nobody's waking you up very early in the morning. And then you are eating rice, yellow rice, and fried. It was very exciting. So I thought I was happy.
No, I think what you're talking about, I guess, is what we call the innocence of youth, of childhood.
Yeah.
You don't know just how in danger you are.
No. So we went to Mbarara, spent about 2 weeks. Then we moved to Oruchinga refugee settlement. One bordering Nakivale, one bordering Kahilimbi. So we settled there for some time.
So let's go slowly by slowly, because I really want to paint a picture of this. So from Kiziguro to Mbarara, that's at least 6 hours of driving.
Yeah. Very happy in the road. Oh, clapping everywhere. Everywhere you are passing, you are greeting people you don't know. You are waving because you are excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
You get to... So at no point in time do you think this is I'm being sent away from my home?
Not at all, no.
But you're also saying that the older people... Because were you with your parents at the time?
No.
They had...
Everybody was moving...
In a separate lorry?
Yes.
Listen, I know just how annoying it is when, just in the middle of a really interesting conversation on YouTube, an ad appears. That frustration is why we've created the long-form Patreon. For just $4 a month, you can enjoy ad-free listening, early access to conversations a full day before they're publicly released, and you're directly supporting the work that we do here. Every episode takes time, research, and sometimes plane tickets. We don't do it for money. We do it because we genuinely believe in sharing stories and conversations that matter. If you want to be part of that journey, you can join the long-form Patreon by scanning the QR code that you can see right now on the screen, or using the link in the description. And if membership is too much of an investment, you can still support us by making a one-time donation via our MTN Momo using the code registered under LF Media 95462. Thank you so much for believing in what we do. Here's a question. What are your secrets worth? And how far will you go to protect them? Every day, tens of thousands of hacked credentials for emails, social media, and other services are bought and sold on the dark web, all without victims suspecting a thing. If you're like me and desire some peace of mind, Threat Informant is for you. Built by Shieldtech Hub, a cybersecurity company, Threat Informant is a dark web monitoring online solution that allows you to search the deep web for hidden markets, detect your leaked data, and react before any damage is done. And here is the best part. It's available for government agencies, businesses, and individuals like myself. It's simple. If your data is out there, Threat Informant will let you know. So take control of your digital safety today and scan the QR code that you can see on your screen, or click the link in the description to sign yourself and your entire organization up. You cannot protect yourself if you don't know you're under threat. Get Threat Informant today.
Children were being put together, maybe with 2-3 elders, and then old women were being put in other trucks, maybe with some strong guys, a few. So it was mixed breed of transportation, but the lorries would be following each other. Yes, in a convoy.
Yeah. And did the government of the time, because by this time, 1961, Rwanda is not independent yet? There's still a lot of Belgian control.
Yes, indeed.
Was this
But
through the
you remember
Belgians?
1959 was what was called the revolution.
Yes.
The 1959 revolution, Hutu revolution. That had made some refugees, the first bunch of refugees had already gone out. So was the second bunch, that was 1961. Which was very, very bad across the whole country. Because the one of 59, it was sections of the country, and the pronouncements were not that bad. People were still sort of friendly. But by 1961, the hatred, the politics of hatred and racism had crept in, and there was massive action across the entire country. 1961.
1961, you now head to Uganda, cross the border, get to Mbarara, from Mbarara.
Orukinga refugee settlement.
Now, for me, who in 1993, I had the opportunity to visit Nyachivala as a 13-year-old. And I remember, from Mbarara to Nyachivala we took a bus. And I remember thinking, this place looks like a desert. It looked so dry. And this was in 1993. By this time, Nyachivala had Rwandan refugees for 20 plus years. I can only imagine through your eyes, just how that area must have looked. Dry, bushy, no settlement. Do you remember what it looked like?
Sure. Orukinga refugee settlement was small huts, small camps, scattered around that area. There was a river below, who actually enjoyed going to swim in the swamp. We learned swimming in those swamps at that age. But the settlements were huts, groupings of 10, 15 houses together, groupings. That's Orukinga refugee settlement. Across Chabirukwa, across what they called Gachinga. So that place was small. It couldn't hold large populations. That's why some people were being moved to Nyachivala. Nyachivala, you see, it was short for Lake Valley.
Lake Valley.
Yeah, that's Nyachivala. The Lake Valley. It was the valley of the lake. Because there was a lake, which then there was the valley on the lake. So that's why they called it Nyachivala. That's the Banyarwanda. But it was the Lake Valley. Then others would call it Naki Valley. But it was the Lake Valley. The valley to the lakes.
Yes.
So that area was scattered with trees. It was dry and bushy, but looked extensive, large. So if you pick the place from Rwagikara, Gahirimbi, to Juru, to Gashojwa, it was a huge, massive place. So the people who had some cows, hoped to have some cows, somehow would have loved to be there because there was plenty of land. That is why, later on, the Orukinga refugee settlement was sort of dismantled. So some people moved to Shungezi. Those were called the agriculturists, those who didn't have cattle. They were moved to Shungezi. And then those who had some cows, one way or the other, moved to Lake Valley or Nyachivala. And that was about 3 years. Our people have a way of organizing themselves. You don't know where they get their cows. You don't know where they get their connection. But somehow somebody has 2 cows from the blue. Another one has 3 cows from nowhere. Yesterday he didn't have, now today he has. So then they would go, I think, to work for the local populations. And from there they would get some little money. And I think they would use the money to buy a cow or 2. So by the time people were moving to Lake Valley or Nyachivala, they had 1 or 2 or 3 cows. And then others moved to Orukinga who didn't have any of those. But when they go to Orukinga, they also acquired cows from some sources we don't know.
Let's talk about you, though. So you are put in this truck with other children, taken to the camps. When does the family reunite again?
Pretty soon. It didn't take long for the family to unite. In maybe a couple of days, all people were put together, the family is united.
So there was you, your mom, Your father, did you have siblings at that time?
We left our dad behind Mbarara because he was still undergoing treatment. But the mom was there, and I think our father joined us maybe about a month later.
Did you have siblings? Did you have siblings, sisters and brothers?
Sure.
How many were you?
At the time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6.
Yeah.
Were you the firstborn?
No. I was, now let me say, in my family, I am the second born of my father, but the last born of my mother. So I have only one elder brother whom we share the father and the mother, because my mother's first husband died very early. And my father, through the tradition, inherited my mother.
Was that your... I actually spoke to Dr. Rwigema, and he had a similar story.
So for me, when my mother's first husband died, my father, through the tradition, took her over.
Was he the brother of...
Yes, yes. And in the tradition, the wife was the wife of the family. So usually if the first husband died, one of the brothers
would marry.
So my mother had other children before us, who belonged to her first husband.
Your uncle? He would have been your uncle?
Yeah, her first, you would call him that. He was my mother's first husband. So they had children. And then when my father married my mother, they got my brother and me. So there's only 2. But my father had other children. So when he wanted to marry his own wife, because my mother was an inheritance, I think he wanted maybe, how to say, a younger wife, but he was involved in the church. So they didn't give him the authority immediately to marry. So we stayed there. So I became the last born by, not by choice, but by the circumstances. So my father got his wife and they produced children. So you can see I have siblings of a different kind, from my mother's first husband, and from my mother, I mean my father and mother, 2 children, and then my father has other children below. So it's a cocktail of relationship.
Yes.
Yes.
No, for a younger generation who live in Rwanda today, who've never experienced statelessness and refugee life, what was daily life like? What did exile and statelessness mean in practical terms?
That's much later in life. At the time, we're just studying. You're not thinking about anything. You are happy the way you are, except that you walked long distances to go to school. You would walk 8 kilometers to go to school and then walk 8 kilometers back. Now that created some kind of training and resilience of some kind. Because very early in the morning, 5 a.m., you would wake up to organize the cows, wherever. Then you would set off to school around 8 or 7:30. So you reach there sweating with brown feet covered with dust. You study by 4 o'clock, you return home in the evening. And then it was a very interesting period. The children grew up very fast because you became the head of the supply chain for the family. So you at 14, you would carry water to the local population, the Banyankole.
Yeah.
So you would take water there, then they give you a bunch of bananas or you would carry water and exchange it for whatever, or you'd carry some ghee, cow ghee, to the local population, the Banyankole, then they would give you food. So by 14, you are the bread earner of the family. So if your family had many boys,
It was well
rich.
off.
Oh, it was well off. First of all, they look after the cattle, they graze, they oil, they feed the cows, and then secondly, they go to the Banyankole to get food. So you learned cycling a bicycle at 14. You are an expert. You cover 6 kilometers to look for food. So sometimes, it's a very interesting story when they say you have harvested pepper. So if they are waiting for you, like where we lived in Shungezi, it was in the valley somehow, and then there was the Banyankole, or the local population, lived on the upper hill, on the raised ground. So if the parents would be waiting, looking up the hill to see the children come back. So if you didn't have anything, if you didn't get the food you wanted, or if you pass, you say sometimes you took water, sometimes you took ghee, but many times you took yourself, asking for labor. Work. So they give you some work, you work, but the man would say, no rabah.
You see this, you do.
See, then he would show you something like half an acre for you to work on, and you are a child.
And to dig it
and clean it and remove the weeds and what. So maybe then at the end of the day, he would give you a bunch of banana. But sometimes you fail to get the job, so you came back empty-handed. But people are waiting for you.
And they are hungry.
So you pick pili pepper. So they would go, then they crush the pili, make sauce out of it, and then use it as soup to eat their kaunga. The Americans, the USAID was still providing yellow maize flour. So they would say, Yaru Soromye, it means
he's not brought anything.
He has not brought food, but he has brought pili. So they would be waiting for you, looking, then say, oh, Araje, Mgareko Yaru Soromi. So they would go, use the pili, use it as sauce to eat the posho. The posho is called what now?
Yeah, posho.
Yes, so
maize meal.
Maize meal. So they would eat it. So Yaru Soromaga, that would be bad news.
Yeah.
But sometimes, if you pass by a good guy, he would allow you to take a banana, small one, then the next day you would come and work. So many times you would go down with food, but sometimes you would go empty-handed.
It must have been, because the way you're speaking, you're not talking about your own experience. You're talking about but I want to know about yours. How often did you fail to get, did you often bring home pepper?
No.
You were always successful.
Yeah, but there's something else I want to talk about that period. The pride of the Banyarwanda, the pride of the local population at the time. You know, you'd be hungry. Then you'd pass by these people in the morning, eating. Then they would say, Ijorye.
Come and eat.
Come and join us and eat. They say, no, nariri. That I have already eaten. Because it was taboo for you to eat among strangers. Part of the training at early age was, don't eat among the strangers. So you would find people eating and you are hungry. They would invite you to eat. You say, no, I have already eaten. So that element is something that I find very interesting. That from childhood, as if I don't eat around, don't go around. I can also tell you that at the time, I am not sure if we knew when our fathers ate. Because you as children, they would put you on the side, you eat and finish, and then you don't see the old man eating. So you wonder when he eats, when they eat. So the eating habits were sort of sacred. You had to sit in a certain place, you had to sit in a certain way, and you had to avoid kuryagaguza. That's what they call it. To eat around whatever you want. It was taboo. So I wanted this to be, and then the Banyankole would be angry that
you're rejecting their kindness.
Yes. So I remember that very well.
When you talk about the Banyankole being angry, one of the things that some people talk about is the relationships and the relations between the two.
Yeah.
The refugee community as well as the community that you found there, the indigenous, the Banyankole. Mm-hmm. How were you treated?
I would say initially really very well. There was a coexistence that was very nice. You had exceptions, of course, like in any community, but generally the relationships were friendly. Except that what I've told you is that this element of pride and not eating, what people didn't like it, but because there was a church, there was a Catholic church, there was a Protestant, and the two communities met there. So that bridged the gap because they shared the word of Jesus Christ. So that brought people very close to each other, the local people and the refugees.
And the school that you went to, was it a refugee school?
Yes, indeed. Missionary set refugee school. I was in Rwamurunga Primary School. Mm-hmm. And I can remember very well, we didn't have classrooms, so we sat under the trees. So the trees became the cover, and our thighs became our notepaper. So we wrote on our thighs. We studied mathematics on our thighs. So if one teacher went out, he would rub your thigh with sand so that you remove the softness or the sweat, and then the next teacher would come and give his lessons on your thigh. And then they would tick and tick on the side. So if you were to check most of the refugees of my kind, and you checked their inner thighs, you would find them very, very rough. But some people have forgotten that experience. But generally, they would mark you on the thighs. Something else I can remember about that time was the Banyarwanda teachers in those schools. You know, they didn't know English, but they improvised. They taught in the Kinyarwanda. And for you to show that you are bright, you had to know mathematics or additions and subtractions. So that became the running point up to about 69, 68. People are still backward in terms of thinking that algebra and what were the mainstay of a clever student. So that changed much later in the 70s. But at the time, you can imagine people who went when there had been teachers in Rwanda here, and they're teaching in these new missionary schools, and they are Banyankole teachers, and those schools also had some Wazungu volunteers basically from the UK. I remember some families there who were aiding, who were coming in as volunteers.
So they're the ones who are teaching you English?
Yes, they were teaching us English. And then our people, our teachers, can give you one short story, but it's not good for the camera. So one teacher was Didas Gahitsa, I can't even say his name. So he said they were reading, there was a book called The Grammar for Primary Schools. So you are reading, where are you going, my little goat? I'm going to do this, blah, 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 blah. And then Peter asked him, what is this? What is this? And this one unsquared. Unsquared. So saying answered. Unsquared. So you can see the kind of teachers, they were trying their best, but there you are, answered is unsquared. So, and the Takurairegaits, that was one teacher. So these things you can remember at the time, but I can't remember things of last week or 2 weeks ago, but I can remember some of those jokes at the time. So there you are.
Now,
So
so primary school, you're going in this missionary school. Actually, a quick question. Obviously, in equatorial Africa, where we are, there are both rainy seasons and dry seasons. So when it would rain, where would you guys go?
there was a church. It came first always. And then the students ran. And because there were camps nearby, like Rwamunonga where we were, on the left you had camps, on the right you had camps, within 15 minutes of running experience. And because you're young, you could run there, but others would gather in the church.
And then continue your lessons.
Continue the lessons after the rains, yes. But then the schools were built very fast. I think people brought in money, some hydro money from nowhere. So they built schools very quickly. By the time we left, like Rwamunonga and Kajaho, they had long classroom houses. And they had learned how to move from the size as notebooks. So we made the tablets on which you would write notes. We didn't have exercise books at the time. They came much later. But you had plates in which you would rub charcoal, which you would rub banana fibers to make it catch the chalk. So we used those up to about 1965, 66. We had notebooks introduced. So you started writing notes in the notebooks, not on the tablets.
When you finished primary school, where do you go to secondary?
By that time we were smart. You would apply in any school of your choice.
Where did you end up?
Personally, I ended up in Mutore Secondary School.
Where is that?
This is in Uganda, bordering our country actually, in Exile district, current Exile district. That is where I ended up going. Very good school at the time. It had missionary brothers who ran the school, and the headmaster was very friendly to the refugee community. Brother Peter Katanga, I remember him, a mixture of Baganda and Banyoro. Very nice Peter Katanga, very famous for his kindness towards us. So he would admit us and let us study without fees.
I was about to ask you, where did the money come from for school fees?
Yes, we didn't have the money. So he would let you study, but we had many people who acted as benefactors. So like I got a benefactor who paid for me the whole of secondary school.
Do you know who that was?
Sure. Long story. So this benefactor from Belgium was the effort of a lady in Mbara called Miss Drake. She was a part of the missionary network. So she used to scholarships for Rwandans from Europe, basically from Belgium, from Switzerland, from France, Italy, France, and a few from the Netherlands, but basically Belgium. So I got a benefactor, but I had been studying without one for a whole year. But when the money came, it went into the general pool, so it would pay for you, but also pay for others who didn't have benefactors. So all you need to know was my fees has come. So me, I didn't know this lady. when she was old. I had never met her. But then when she died, her daughter took over. But my benefactor died at the age of 89, very old lady. And then because of the culture, I think she was a Belgian, maybe of Jewish origin, so they cremated her. So when I grew up, actually recently, after when I left government, I went to look for her to see what happened to my benefactors. I couldn't trace her. There were secrets and laws guarding somebody's death. So I looked for a lawyer to help me trace. Then the address I gave was the residential area. It wasn't her house. So I got lost. So eventually I tried to trace. Then they told me she had a daughter who lived in Germany, who had taken over responsibility from the mother when the mother died. So I went to Germany to look for members of her family, but this lady had also died at the age of 82 or 83. So I came back to Rwanda empty-handed. But I wanted the story very, very badly of my benefactor. What happened? Where is she? Where is the body? Where is the trace? So eventually I became insistent. I went to, they told me she had moved to Jersey in the UK. But I was free and I had some little loose money. So when I flew to UK and went to Jersey to trace, and then it was a place that people went to for vacation. So she didn't stay there. So I came back empty-handed. Then I went to the Belgian Foreign Ministry. So I got somebody, very interesting. A Rwandan lady married to a Belgian guy. The lady working in the embassy in the UK, in the foreign ministry, I beg your pardon. So she offered to help. So she looked for all the correspondences I had with my benefactor since 1970 up to when she died. Those correspondences were there. So I brought them back to Rwanda. You know, we used to write on things called airmaid, where you would write on the paper and then fold it like this, and then send it. It was Paravio airmaid. So I brought all those. I have them here. Dating 1960s, I brought them. Then told me that my mother and my second mother had all been cremated, and that the ashes were sacred. I couldn't get access to them, but I would be shown the place where they were, and then I came back satisfied that I'd done my best to look for these people. So a very interesting story that you have somebody, I call it love without borders. How does somebody who doesn't know you
change your life?
Change your life, educate you from senior 1 up to senior 6. Of course, when I reached the university, I changed. I became a Mufumbira, changed my identity, became a Ugandan straight, and then continued that way until we came to Rwanda.
That's fantastic. I think the stories from your generation really speak of resilience, but they also speak about a certain level of humanity. Because there are people who, like you said, you never get to meet, never get to say thank you, but they change your life.
Yes.
And there's a lot of Rwandans who could not have survived without those benefactors, those people taking care of you, helping you when they did not have any reason to.
Yes.
Just out of kindness. You finished, you were in Mutolere for the full 6 years?
No, 4 years. And then I went to St. Henry's Kitovu.
That's in Uganda.
Yes. That was my second choice. I went there. That's why I was admitted. When I got there, I was frustrated.
What year was this?
Right in 1972. So when I got to St. Henry's Kitovu, I was completely frustrated.
Why?
First, there was a Rwandan teacher who had also taught us in Mutore, Mr. Butorwa. He was teaching French. So me, I wanted a combination that included economics. But I had failed mathematics. So the policy in St. Henry's was that to be able to be allowed to do economics, you had to have passed mathematics. I said, no. Economics is about this. I wanted whatever to do, I wanted to study economics. But for them, there are combinations. I wanted economics, but I also wanted French. They said those combinations don't exist. I said, but it is me. Allow me to study my French in HSC because I had passed it in O level. Allow me to study my economics, forget mathematics. The only thing I remember about mathematics was when they introduced a topic called probabilities.
Hey, if you're tired of working hard, but never getting ahead financially, you need to start listening to the Money Blueprint podcast hosted by Isaac Musi. The Money Blueprint podcast isn't a get-rich-quick show. Isaac Musi, an expert in financial literacy with over 15 years of experience, shares practical tools that help you build discipline, make better decisions, and create real wealth. Out every Monday, the Money Blueprint podcast with Isaac Musi is on YouTube and all major audio platforms.
This podcast is brought to you by LF Media, home of great African podcasts.
If you are trying your best to raise healthy children, but feel like you need clear, trustworthy advice, Healthy Beginnings podcast, hosted by Dr. Edgar Kalimba, is for you. With over a decade of experience caring for children and supporting the parents raising them, Dr. Edgar Kalimba shares practical knowledge grounded in science, but rooted in the lived experience of Africans. Out every Monday, Healthy Beginnings with Dr. Edgar Kalimba is on YouTube and all major audio platforms.
This podcast is brought to you by LF Media, home of great African podcasts.
So that one was very interesting. The other mathematics, algebra, blah, blah, take this, the x cos y, was a dead world for me. Then they brought a topic called probabilities. And then I was very happy because I would pass it very well. So if a woman is pregnant, she will either give birth to a boy or a girl or a boat, but it would be an abortion of a boy or a girl. So the probability that that's what will happen, I was okay with that. So I would be then say, Karugarama, thank you very much. For the first time, I would be happy with mathematics, but otherwise I was dull, and I failed it in O level. So that was my problem in Kitovu. So when they became complicated, I abandoned the school because I knew what I wanted and I wanted to get it. So I got to Old Kampala. So, but first I passed by Ministry of Education. I was then fraudulent. I was a young boy, but very fraudulent. I told them I passed, but I haven't been admitted in the Ministry of Education in Kampala. Crescent Towers, they called it, the headquarters of the Ministry of Education. And when they said, you see, these are my results. They said, no, they admitted you. These are very good results. I said, blah, 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 blah. I said, but nobody has admitted me, so can you put me in some school? They said, well, what are your subjects? I said, can you go to Old Kampala or Croesus? I said, Old Kampala, I had heard about it. And it had some good Bahindis. What? So I said, Old Kampala. And that's where also the president went for his A level. Eventually, I was his prefect, but I don't want to say it. But I was then a good boy, young. So I went to Old Kampala for my A level.
So that is 1972.
1972.
Before we continue.
So I did my, because I was a king, when they saw my result, they were happy to admit somebody like me. So I was offered my French, I was offered my history, I was offered my economics. So I was then a religious, they call it divinity.
Yes.
So I got my...
Whatever you wanted.
And I passed them very, very highly. So
before we continue though, and continue on this scholastic journey, obviously during the holidays, would you go back home?
Sure, to refugee
to the
camp?
camps?
Yes,
Now,
always.
Now, one of the things with life
Except when I went to university. But before then, every holiday I would be at home.
So how did you contrast that? Because there was the secondary life, where I've heard that those years in the 60s and the 70s, secondary school was quite good. The food was good, the beddings were good, the environment was very, you'd say, modern for that time. Then school ends, term 1 ends, term 2, term 3, you jump on a bus, you head back to the refugee camp. It must have been quite, not shocking, but the contrast must have been quite jarring.
That's true. Somehow I was a very lucky guy at the time. Very, very lucky indeed. First, my father worked for the Uganda Red Cross. So he was a sort of some kind of doctor, because he could inject some people. In the modern world, you'd call him a dresser. The fellows that helped the medical assistants to cover the wounds and what. But somehow they would learn, and because he's seen with Bazungu and what. So that gave me a chance to understand the workings of these NGOs and to see my father growing up. Apparently he was a very good friend of your grandfather. They knew each other very, very well. And your grandfather and me know each other very, very well. We have a long history together. Another time I'll let you know. So the second point is that I became conscious that this mathematics of algebra and what had created a problem for us as refugees to go to secondary, because you had no idea because of what secondary school life was. So when I go to secondary school, I realized that we were being choked or misguided in primary school by teaching you algebra and maths or arithmetics at the time. So I offered to be a teacher voluntarily. And for me, I widened the scope of teaching. So instead of teaching them algebra, I taught them social sciences. Because in secondary school, you had so many different subjects. History, geography, all sorts of subjects that made you pass to go to HSC. So our fellows were failing when they reached secondary school because they were taught only algebra
and mathematics.
So I went and introduced teaching. I think that was 72 or some, in Orchinga refugee settlement. So I introduced lessons. And because I was young and innovative at the time, I would tell them good stories that I've read in the books, Shakespeare, tell them Romeo and Juliet, stories of love and affection, stories of conquest. So the children became interested in other subjects. Then I told them the history of Uganda, the thing. So our students in Rwamurunga started passing very well when they went to for secondary school. They would pass with flying colors because of that little contribution I made. So I met the headmaster called Rushanda Foster. He's now dead. So he took interest. So for me, when people were crying for pocket money, because I was volunteering, he would give me some little pocket money to go back to secondary school. So I was studying, but teaching in the holiday, every holiday. Then I would get some pocket money from there. So when he moved from Rwamurunga Primary School to Kajaho, and I continued, he virtually begged me, requested to go and also teach in Kajaho to raise up the standards. So I taught in Kajaho. Rwamurunga, let me say, was a Catholic school, purely. And Kajaho was a Protestant school, purely. So I was crossing the line between them. So I was, like you could call me, a Catholic or a Catholic Protestant. So in Kajaho, I met a lady called Miss Carlisle, who was a sort of a volunteer for an NGO. So she liked my small English, she liked my way of things. So she gave me a job to work in her library. So I mixed with big Protestant people, the late Rwabarindas, the late Kayumbu, Enoch, the late Mbwaya Handi. So I became a Protestant of some kind. I became their child. But I was also a child of the Rwamurunga Catholic place. So I was a bridge between the Catholics and the Protestants, and I enjoyed that relationship. Up to today, I'm called Mwarimu, but the people I taught in those places, I can tell you vaguely a few people, like General Kayonga, that was my student, like Karamba, the ambassador, those are my students, like all sorts of people that you've never known were my students. So some I met in primary, but even in secondary, when I was teaching in Kitante secondary school, when I was teaching in Koroleses, I taught so many people, so I'm mwalimu of some kind.
But then before we go to that space,
Yeah.
When you are in Mutorere, when you are in Old Kampala, are you identified by the rest of the student body as a Ugandan, as a Mufumbira, as a Munyarwanda? How do people perceive you?
In Mutorere, it was terrible because in Mutorere it was a racist place. In 1971, I think, there was some kind of upheaval in Burundi, in which allegedly the Tutsis killed the Hutu population, the military guys in Burundi. Because the population in Bufumbira, Kisoro district, was Tutsi and Hutu. And so the politics of Burundi went into Uganda, and the teachers in Uganda, in Mutore Secondary School in particular, were sensitive about what was happening in Burundi. So they brought racist talk, like we had a teacher called Mateke.
Mateke who?
Philemon Mateke, MP.
He was a minister in Uganda.
Yes, he was a minister in Uganda. He was a pure racist. And the people you used to think were normal became abnormal. So they hated us.
They hated you?
No, not me. They hated the Banyarwanda in Mutorere. They wanted to kill us. They organized actually a killing spree.
What do you mean?
In Mutorere school,
yes,
they organized to kill us. Then...
Organized by doing what?
By getting gas in our beds and kill us. So they planned to kill us. And then the news leaked because it was two populations, the Hutu and the Tutsi. So the Tutsi communities in the places would pick the information that you see, you guys, they're going to kill you. They're going to find you in your beds and kill you. And because we had some people like Edward Kaihura, who was studying in Mutorat, he was my classmate, let me say, personally. Was my classmate. His father had been killed in that he was killed in Egypt actually, but they brought some kind of body and said it was him, so they built somewhere in Bufumbira. So they would pick information, and then there were Bufumbira students, our colleagues, who would pick information from their parents that they were targeting to kill us during the night. So we organized. We sent a fellow called Rwabukumba, if I remember. Rwabukumba, yes. He was a brother to this guy, the general who is sick, very sick, Rwahama. Rwahama was then ADC, Assistant District Commander of Chikagati. And he was a district assistant commissioner in Amin's regime. Then there was somebody called...
But that is, you're still talking about 1971. So at that time, if I'm not mistaken, you are still in senior 4.
No, I was 71, I was in senior 3. I was in senior 3. So we sent this guy to tell Rwahama that people were...
Who you knew as a Munyarwanda?
Who?
Rwahama.
We knew he was a Munyarwanda. We knew him. We knew his brother, so he was a classmate. So we sent him. And then Rwahama had another fellow who was an operative in the Amin regime. He's called, what's the name again? Now, he was in the barracks. He was a colonel. I'll remember the name shortly. So we sent a message that they're going to kill us. So he contacted his friend, and then they sent us soldiers from Barara who came, and then very interesting. He was called Simba now, so it was called Simba. So Simba organized soldiers to come to Mutore. So the night they planned sort of to kill us, they were there. We used to have what you call prep, the lessons at night. So they went to every door in Mutore Secondary School, every door. Then they placed some people on the gate, the doors of the dormitories where we stayed. So at night, if you went for a short call, they followed you. So that night, they patrolled Mutore Secondary School. And what happened? The guys who went out, they were beaten by lightning, you would say. You would go to the toilet, come back, and somebody's beating. Don't know why. But because for us we had information, we did not move around. We kept in our beds, but those who didn't have information that were being surveyed, they went out as usual, or they thought they could continue their work. But when they went out, they were beaten. So by morning, they would disappear. By evening, they would be, so they stayed there for 2 days. And then they organized and they got Amin to come. Simba was powerful and Rwahama, those guys. They got Amin to come to Kisoro. It had a small airfield at Nyarusiza, just close to our border here. So Amin came to Mutore, no, to Nyarusiza. Then he made a big message, big pronouncement that the people want to kill people here. I tell you very well, you kill people, we kill your soul. So the message came that those who are planning to kill should stop. There's no reason to kill people. So we survived that so-called plan to kill all of us. So the idea had been that because they knew us, we were a handful of refugees. And then there were the local population, the Tutsi community who belonged to that place. There were also few. So Rwahama, currently very sick, apparently, protected us with Simba. So we survived that killing. But the hatred, the racism was exhibited at the time, tells you the deep divisions at the time, which can be explained by the genocide in 1994. Because the politics of hatred was very, very deep. You can imagine something that happened in Burundi.
Affecting you in
affecting
Kisoro.
us in a secondary school in Kisoro here. So, and then people want to kill you. You have no idea. You're just an innocent. So this guy called Mateke, Philemon, apparently later on he changed. When I came to meet him later in Kitante, when I was a teacher there, he had sort of changed attitude. I can tell you why later on. But at the time, when he was campaigning to become an MP, they would carry him in Ngobji. So like they carry...
It's like a throne.
Yeah. So and then they would be saying, who is the Mateke? Who is the Mateke? Ntaburi cyarya. Who is the Mateke? Ntaburi cyanya. Who is the Mateke? So carrying him as the king of Bufumbira, as the new MP. I met him much later on in Kampala when Gashegu, the late, was headmaster. And Gashegu never differentiated between Mufumbira and Munyarwanda. His politics were very, very clear. If you spoke Kinyarwanda, you were Munyarwanda. It doesn't matter whether you're Hutu or Tutsi. So when he was admitting people in school, and there was a temporary teacher that was working for the Justice Ministry in Kampala, but I was teaching part-time in Kitante. And Gashegu and I were close friends and involved in the struggle. That's another story. It was part of the struggle that we were trying to wage later on. So most of the people he admitted were not actually Banyarwanda refugees. They were Bafumbira, but everywhere they said the man has made the school a school of Banyarwanda. So Mateke went there. And the complaint of some sources we don't know, to find out. Then he found there people, say Bishimbo, say Majeri, Vili Kunzira, Mfuendarora. So, and then he said, hey, Rumwana Wadesha. And then he found these were children from Bufumbira, where he came from, his own people. So then he realized Gashegu was being crucified for nothing because he was admitting Bufumbira. So he started now protecting Gashegu. They became friends. So even the Banyarwanda who went there, they all disappeared into Bafumbira. That's how we lived in that type of situation.
So now let's go back again. You've moved
too fast.
A bit too fast. Let's go. You go to Old Kampala. There you are no longer one of a few, that small little refugee community that can be targeted. Now you're in the capital city.
Yeah. We judge population, people who don't know each other.
The experience must have been very different.
Totally different. We had a French, somebody who was teaching us French, Martin Masozera, the father, the Masozera family, if you know them. Martin Masozera was my teacher at Old Kampala. Although later on we taught together in Kitante with his wife and himself, but he was my teacher in A-level. And I studied my economics. The teacher was a Munyarwanda. I studied the literature. The teacher was a Musoga. I studied my, what did I say?
Divinity.
The teacher was some kind of fellow from Buganda, I think. Foibi Bado, yes. So there was nothing like feeling a refugee in that community.
You're no
You were
longer
free.
targeted.
Not at all. And then we lived in a hostel where I was lucky to be appointed a prefect. So I was in Buganda Road Hostel.
For those who don't know what a prefect is, that's a student
Leader.
leader.
But there were different leaders. So I was a leader in charge of social welfare. So I had my own cabinet where I used to stay. So if you wanted the things to be done, you went through me. So I was very close to the hostel boss. And then in that place, you started understanding how things work, in the sense that people would be consulting you over so many small things. So you became a leader of some kind at a young life. Like people I was with in that hostel who became friends, very close friends later in life, like Jim Muhwezi now in Uganda. Was my classmate. We have photos playing karate. We used to go and drink some stuff together. So you had people who came in later, like I don't want to mention the names, like big bosses who came in the school much later, but joined when I was leaving, who were in the school nearby. So we became first people like if I talk about myself, to really understand life in Kampala. We were still boys. You knew every street, because I was also teaching part-time in a school called Pillars. Later on it was named Nakasero Secondary School. So for me, all my life was teaching. If I got a chance, I would go to teach to be able to fund my excesses. I had many excesses. I liked my cigarette at the time. I liked my beer at the time. So who gives it to you? You have to work for it. So everywhere I went, I always went to teaching. So when people are going to race around, I would get to school. I had my style of teaching. Students would like me. So I would give them good stories that I've read. And then that's how I made money to live my kind of life. Simplified, but worked for.
Now, what was life like? Because we're talking about your life, but then there's a larger context. The context being, this is in Idi Amin's Uganda.
Yeah, sure.
And when you think about Idi Amin and the 70s, it was, some historians will say that was a period of a reign of terror. You've made it seem like life continued and you had no problem. But on the other side, when you read books and you talk to people who lived during that time, there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of terrorism happening. Now, you who was in Kampala at the time, did that not affect you in any way?
I think Idi Amin's terror is comparable. I don't think it was any worse than under Obote regime.
Really? For you?
For the country, according to my own assessment.
Yeah.
Idi Amin would have his problems with his soldiers, with his in the political field. But for you, the student, it only affected you because the economy was so bad. Like the salary I worked for in the ministry could only afford maybe 2-3 bunches of matoke, or could only buy a saucepan. So how do you explain somebody working and is earning a salary that can only buy a saucepan or several bunches of matoke? So life was so bad. If you wanted to get to marry, you wanted sodas, you couldn't get them. So you had to get special permission from the Minister of Commerce to be able to get sodas from Lake Victoria Bottling Company or whatever it was called. So for you to get beers, you had to get a letter from the minister. They call allocation. So nobody, there was a scarcity of every soap, beer, soda, everything you had to apply to get. So if like where we used to go to have fun in the evening, one day gear. So if you went to a bar, you went early. So you bought 8 beers, but you didn't need 8. You needed maybe 4 or 3. So you would buy, those who came after would find no beers. So you would sell them your beers. Because you have gone early, so you get 8, you put 4 down here, you drink 2, somebody who comes, there's no beer. Then you say, yeah, but I have some beer here. Then he gives you some profit on the beer. You pay it maybe by 1.5 times what you bought it. So that was the kind of life we lived, economic hardship. But that was general in the country. It did not affect you personally as a refugee, as what affected you as a refugee is much later when the politics of Museveni and what came. But before then, in Idi Amin's time, you were as bad off as anybody else. And nobody considered you a refugee. Nobody thought about you at all as at the time of Idi Amin.
Which is also not, well, I don't know if you're being honest, because you also said that to get into university,
yes,
you changed your ethnic group.
Yes, because that's something interesting. Because Idi Amin had been poisoned that the Banyarwanda were dominating the country. Because his advisors told him so. So they made a policy. And this is something, it's going to make me say something I wasn't going to talk about. It means that I think the Ugandan people, the Ugandan population, is the most generous group in the world. See, I don't know at the time, but I know even when I grew up, much later, I recognized that Uganda, may God help that country to prosper forever. The most generous people in the world, the most generous community that I can ever think about. And I have visited many communities. So that time, I think the local politics were saying the Banyarwanda were dominating place, blah, 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 blah. So you had to limit them going to the university to do professional courses. General courses, no problem. Professional courses, medicine, veterinary, law, no. But you do arts, flat or whatever, but not professional courses. So they introduced a system where you had to go and have your papers signed by the local leadership. Then you go to the district level, they sign. Then you go to the military and the admin, they call them admin. They must sign on your papers to go to the university and do the course you wanted.
To prove that you are
a citizen.
Indigenous Ugandan.
So you can imagine we lived in a refugee camp, but these guys that were leaders there, they would sign it for you. They know very well you are not citizen. They know you are a refugee. They say, so they sign it for you. Then you go to the district level. There was somebody there who didn't like us at all.
What was his name?
Was he Katiti? So it is somebody who was district who was so bad. Then he would say, but these fellows are... But because of the work and the nature and the corruption in the system, he didn't spend much time. If they signed for you, there would be somebody to sign on his or himself, on his, many papers there. So they would sign. Then you go to the barracks. You had to go there. And then you find some fellows, say, then they sign. So you went to the university under a different identity. So first you're a refugee. Everybody knows you as a refugee. And then all of a sudden, you have become a Ugandan. So in order to Kampala, I was a Ugandan from Ankole district with proven documentation. But I had been infected because I didn't have the money. The manufacturer would send the money through the NGO network, like the one who succeeded my mother, her daughter, would send it through Zambia. Then I would get information that my money has come, but I'm a Munyankole in old Kampala, but my fees is being paid by some benefactor from Belgium. And those contradictions taught us how to live a life that was very, very sensitive, very tricky to manage, and you always felt something wanting, something missing. If I reflect back, that was because you didn't have a country, you didn't have a basis. If I think backwards, while this was happening, why you got confused all the time, it's because you didn't have a sense of belonging. On one hand, you are Munyankole. On the other one, you are Mufumbira. On the other one, you are a refugee still. And you are going to refugee settlement. So who are you actually? The source of lack of identity, you can't identify yourself for who you actually are. You can't stand up and say, this is me, a refugee from this, and you can't, because all the time you are guarded. So that taught you how to live carefully, how to avoid conflict, and how to be friendly with the people. Somehow you became an expert in being friends with the teachers, your bosses. So they saw in you a good guy because you are living on walking on needles. You didn't know who you are.
And you have to survive.
And you have to survive. You have to survive honestly. So, and you met many challenges all the time. I remember, for example, that's much later, when I was a prosecuting attorney.
But let's go.
Let's go behind here.
Yes.
Let's not run too
So
fast.
you finished your secondary school.
Yes.
Was admitted into Makerere
Yes.
University.
Yeah.
For law.
For law.
As a
I'd
Mufumbira,
not-
as a Mufumbira, as a
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
You must have enjoyed it.
Yes, I hadn't applied for law. I had applied for law in Dar es Salaam. At Makerere, I had applied for social sciences. But at the time, we had the East African University, and they were working together. So, because my grades were very good, Makerere took me on, although I didn't apply for law in Makerere. And I didn't like law generally. I wanted to do social sciences, I wanted to do political science, because I was dreaming of becoming an ambassador of some kind, put on a flag on a car.
A flag of which country?
So whatever, because I was, if they appointed you an ambassador, I was a Ugandan. Then you get people opening doors for you, and then others saluting. That was my kind of dream. So when I went to Makerere to do law, it was grudgingly, but eventually I liked it, and it opened a few doors for me. And eventually I liked it, I enjoyed it. But initially, that wasn't my kind of fun.
Was there a large Rwandan refugee community in Makerere at the time? Because this is now, 75, 76?
Yeah, there weren't many. Or just a handful of them at the time. But some of them very well positioned. Like we had Patrick Mazimhaka, who was the head of the Department of Geology.
Oh, he was already a lecturer.
Yes, but Then there was Beatrice Mukabaranga, who was a matron in Africa Hall. I don't know if you know her. She's a brother related to the Gahimas and Eugene the Singwas, and she's here. She was a matron of Africa Hall. And then you had Pamuranje, who was married to some Muhima from Rukonjiri. Those were the powerful pillars we had there. So
Any Banyarwanda in
the school,
in your course?
I cannot remember one or two, but there were very few lawyers. Even 2-3 years ahead, there were few lawyers in Makerere for the Rwandan. Very few. They came in much later. At the time, it was just a handful. Like in the Ministry of Justice, where I worked later on, I was the only one who was a refugee. But I was a Ugandan like anybody else. The surroundings in Makerere, I think most of the people were either in agriculture, in forestry. In the medical school, we had maybe, for the doctors, I think we had about 3 or 4. And the others were medical assistants. So we didn't have a large community in Makerere of Rwandan professionals. There were not many at my time.
Let me ask. Now, I want to now go, we've had a good sense of your life journey, but I also now want to start talking about your political awakening, the consciousness, because there's the life and then there's the consciousness. At what point did you stop seeing yourself as simply a refugee trying to survive and build a life? And when did you start seeing the Rwandan question as a political problem that needed a political solution? Was it when you were still in school? Was it when you were in high school? Was it when you were in university? Was it when you graduated university?
I think basically the awakening was when I was still at the university.
What woke you up?
Oh my God, it's a long story. What happened is that you found, as I said, a sense of not belonging. You got confused. Who are you? And then people around you identify you as a refugee. People around you share the food you eat. Like was a prefect in my hall of residence, even at Makerere in Mitchell Hall. But the fellows, you know, you would campaign for those posts to be a prefect. And you would campaign, get the student to vote you. And usually you like to put my name forward for whatever eventuality. And I do remember in Mitchell Hall, when I wanted the leadership of the hall, the chairman, my challenge at the time was David Tinyifuza. So, at the time, at the university, as a student, you had the feeling that you did not belong. It was there, but you didn't know how to sort it out. You had an idea that you were being discriminated against. Somehow, people would know, then they push you aside. But because the system was so corrupt and everybody was trying just to survive, you lived through.
You'd survive.
You survived. But in your conscience, you always felt you did not belong. You're not part of the future. You are just living in the present, but you have no idea about your tomorrow. So you only think about how can I get food, how can I get a job, how can I get, but you have no big idea about what to do next until much later.
So what year is this? When are you in university?
1973 to 1975 to 9.
To 79.
79. When Amin actually, when UPDF, when Amin was overthrown, that's the day I became a refugee for the second time, because then I fled to Kenya.
Were you still, you hadn't yet graduated?
Not yet, but the graduation, we had completed the course. That was in March, I think. So we had completed the course. So we were waiting for graduation. Then the Tanzanian short, and we had stayed at the campus because our southern border, those of us who came from Chisoro and beyond, the roads were closed at Katonga, so you could not go south. So we stayed at the university until the Sabasabas came and hit.
So that's, for people who don't know, Sabasabas were these huge artillery.
Yeah, huge artillery. When they started shelling, and they were flying, those things were flying over the university. They hit areas just a little bit beyond us. Guys. So we parked. So you didn't know where to go. You couldn't go south. You couldn't go north. So the only exit was eastern to Kenya. So I packed my belongings, a small bag, but at the time I was sensitive to books. So I carried a huge box of books belonging to Ambassador Rutsinga. He had left them with me to keep for him. And the late Fidel Rwigema. So I had kept their books because when they went to Kenya, they left me with their books to keep. So I was running from the war, going to Kenya, but the Palestinian soldiers who were helping Amin had cut off the road at Mukono. Nobody was moving, so I moved in a cattle train with those boxes.
Were they Palestinians or were they Libyans? I think they were Libyans.
They are Libyan, but also Palestinians. Yes, in the group of Palestinians and Libyans, but they were Palestinians as well. And actually, the Libyans were playing a second role to the Palestinians. But I don't, maybe the Libyans were providing the payments. So I boarded a cattle train.
Cattle train?
Yeah, cattle train. Because we had nowhere to go. They were shooting everywhere over us. So I picked those bags, then moved. When I reached the railway station, there was no train to go there, but there was a cattle train full of cow dung. So we boarded. When we got to Mukono, we got out. These fellows looked at us. We were stepping in the water. They said, let's go. So we went like that. I crossed the border to Kenya, and somehow I managed to get out and communicate. I had those guys' telephones, so they came to pick their books and pick me up and buy me a Tusker beer. That was it.
And you survived?
Yes.
So
that was 1979.
79.
So I became a refugee in Kenya.
And now you're with your other friends, classmates, colleagues.
Yes.
79 is an interesting year in the history of Rwanda because that was also the year that the organization that it was known as RANU was formed.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, indeed. So when I got to Kenya, at the time, Most Rwandans who left Makerere University and went to Kenya, whether they were doctors, whether they were agricultural officers, they ended up teaching. They gave teaching jobs
That was the only work that was
available. Yeah. And so other smart people were moving southwards.
To where?
To Botswana, to Lesotho, to Swaziland, and to the Republic of South Africa, what they call the Bantustans. So I had a big ambition myself to go south. There was a teacher at the Road Development Center who had been our boss, a Nigerian, Dr. Rizu. He was organizing for most of us who wanted to go south, to go and have green pastures. So I was on his list of candidates to go south. So I had opted to go to Swaziland or Botswana. And my papers were good, my grades were good. But when I got there, and I met these guys, so there was an ideological challenge. And
When you went to Lesotho?
I didn't go.
Oh, you stayed in Kenya?
I stayed in Nairobi. I'm telling you why. So while I was there in Kenya, at a personal level, I felt an embarrassment.
Why?
Because everybody else was returning home. Everybody, the Ugandans had fought, found us there, left us as refugees. They went out, came back, were still refugees. So what is wrong with us? Why don't we also go home? So that's at a personal level. So I was asking myself that question, and I was angry and embarrassed that for so many years, we are refugees, and everybody else has a country, and we don't have a country. So in Nairobi, over a beer, over a soda, everybody was expressing the same feeling.
Who are those people?
I can tell you that everybody, even Rwandan, who was in Nairobi at the time, had that feeling, but I'm going to develop that story further. So there was a place called Robusta Port Hotel in Nairobi. Robusta Port Hotel was a nice joint, non-discriminatory. You know, in Nairobi there was still racism also. In some hotels like Stanley and what, the blacks had their own side, or they were not served at all, even by 79. So you had some hotels in Kenya that were purely for whites. So the Robusta Port Hotel was a friendly place, very quiet, very private. So we'd meet there over a beer. And then we'd all start talking. Our problem. So eventually we created a consensus that we should find a way, a formula, of having an organization to plan for our return to Rwanda. So over time, at the personal level, I was assigned the responsibility to prepare a constitution.
Constitution of what?
Of an organization that we were going to set up, that then we would all subscribe to. And then two other colleagues, I think, were assigned the responsibility to prepare the documents, the principles of the organization. So we worked on it, and then we agreed what we call the Robusta Port Code a hotel. That's the Robusta Port Agreement. To meet in the Nana school and launch the movement. So we went to Renana school and declared the formation of RANU.
Who came up with the name?
I think there were several names that were proposed, but RANU somehow had two appealing words. It's an alliance, but it's also targeting national unity, because the two words were key. It's an alliance, it's not a political movement, it's not, you see, at the time, the word movement was very popular. Everything was movement in Uganda, in Southern Africa, movement, in Malawi, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe. So we chose to have an alliance of all Rwandan forces. Our working documents at the time, I still have some copies, were very nice, original, and diluted original words of our working documents. So if you look at them in 1979 and you compare what's happening today, you would be very amazed. You have access to some of our working documents at the time. So when we were there, when we formed that, then we had.
What other names did you were proposed?
I can't remember. I cannot remember when we changed from RANU to RPF.
Can I ask you? What confuses me is that Rwandan refugees started the statelessness of Rwandans started in 1959.
Yeah.
This organization that you're talking about was founded in 1979.
Correct.
Those are 20 years of suffering, of pain, of a lack of a home. Now, why was there no movement or political organization or alliance until 1979? The issues existed in 1969. The issues existed in 1973. What were you waiting for?
This is something very interesting, because RANU was in the first movement. There was Nyenzi who tried to come back and were defeated all the time. So they were basically operating from Burundi. But they failed. The forces in Rwanda crushed them. So the Nyenzi movement was still alive. And there was a blame game. Those of us at the time blamed the Nyenzi for their failures, because these were, I would say, peasants. They did not have intellectual leadership. They didn't have people that have. These were people that were angry and wanted to return home, and they were defeated all the time. So there were blame games. People were saying those fellows were incompetent. So at the time in 79, we recognized that the Nyenzi failed because they did not have proper policy, proper guidance to be able to come and overthrow. And they were moving on the basis of, I would say, racism, Tutsis. See? So they were operating from Burundi, being supported by the Burundi government, a Burundi government that was considered a Tutsi government. So, in a way, they were being blamed for advancing a cause, but didn't have...
That was sectarian.
That didn't have ideological basis other than...
The return of...
The return. And for them, because they were adults, they felt they had lost the opportunity to lead the country. And so, in our time then, we were saying, why did the Nyenzi fail? And we were saying because they lacked ideological orientation. They lacked intellectual leadership. Of course, later on, we were going to be blamed for being intellectual later on by other people that were intellectualizing the struggle rather than getting the fighters to come and fight the war. We were in academics, but that's much later on. But at the time, as I was saying, at the Robusta port, we agreed on those facts. Let's go and launch the organization. So we met in Renana, and then we heard.
So for those who don't know, Lenana
High School
is just a high school.
Renana High School, that's where my brother was teaching.
And that's why you met there?
That's where we met in that house. That's where we declared the birth of RANU. And my brother's, I will show you the pictures of that house. Very nice with Mategura roofings and the founding members. So I have some pictures. Now, so we agreed to meet. And the people were there, including Ambassador Zeno, including the late, he was called Gabriel Sebyeza, but he's not the girl. His other name was Asatuzi. He was a very interesting man against the monarchy, but he was from the royal family. Yaro Muhindro, very, very close to the establishment, but didn't like the Bahindro, the kingdoms. He had also been imprisoned in Rwanda. He was our first chairman of RANU. He died in Canada later on, but he was called Athatuzi. Then there was Ambassador Zeno. Then there was, the list is not many people. There was Alphonse the singer. There was several other people. I have the names down. So we launched RANU in that place and signed the document. Then we heard there was a group in another group that was trying to form an organization, also for the same purpose.
What was that group called?
That was it. What's called again? I'll remember shortly. So it was in. There were people who I remember, like Ambassador Karenzi, Theonest. You know him? Mm-hmm. Theonest. Rimouros, yes, Rimouros School. So there was Karenzi Theonest, currently he's a retired ambassador. There was Dusaidi,
Claude
Dusaidi.
Who tried to create another organization.
Yes, who are trying to make, we didn't know each other. They were also trying to be like us. Then we sent an emissary in the form of Anthony Karugarama, my elder brother, to go and meet them in Rimuru and tell them that we had an organization. Do they want to join it or do they want to go alone? And then they agreed that we merge the fellows in Rimuru with the group. The Rwanda group. So we merged them into two and made one coherent organization called RANU. And then, again, this is very interesting. I always think that there is always a sectarian line to it. We couldn't meet in Renana in large numbers. Kenya was very sensitive and was a friend of our country here.
A friend of the
Habyarimana government. So we chose a date. I think it is 8th. We chose the Kenya Day, the whole day. We call it the
Jamhuri.
The whole day, the Kenya, I remember it a little while. But it's the Kenya National Day. So we chose it, I think it's 8th of the day we signed our document. We considered it with the Kenya's Madaraka Day. They call it Madaraka Day. Okay. So that if they are celebrating and they see us celebrating, they think we are celebrating
the same thing.
They are think when you are celebrating the birth of RANU, they think we are celebrating the Madaraka Day. I think it is 8th February also, or 8th March.
Can I ask you, just quickly?
There was something I was moving to,
Yes,
before I
sorry.
forget. So because we became a large group then, if you took the Limuru group, the Nana group became, so again, on some kind of sectarian basis, the Burundi ambassador, the late Mukuri, organized for us to meet at his house.
Because he said these are Tutsis.
Yeah, I think so. And then in Uganda, there was Albert Shibura, a major, who also had those sentiments. So the two ambassadors together had a very big role in the early birth of RANU. And then Tanzania became a learning example where we could associate with and plead our case intellectually to Nyerere and other people. They would understand our cause. So we started looking around the region. Where do you get support? How do you do it? So we identified Nyerere and Tanzania as a group where we could get political support for the region. But in terms of the closeness, the confidential working, the meetings, we were doing most of those in the Burundian ambassador. So we had free sodas, free beers, free water, which we couldn't afford in large gatherings like that.
Now that's super interesting, and we'll go and talk about that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that the world will tell young people is that you have no power, that you cannot change the way things are, and that the idea of you changing the way things are is actually almost arrogant. How dare you think you can change, you can make things change. Now, here your group is probably not more than 20 young men with no money, no prospects, no guns, nothing but a very good, I guess, Ugandan education. Sitting in this school in Kenya, writing this document, the Rwandese Alliance for National Unity. How did you have even the guts to actually think that you could change your circumstances?
Very interesting. Again, that's why we're being accused of being academicians. Because we had a big vision. If you look at our founding documents, we read widely.
What were you reading?
Che Guevara. We are reading about revolution, the Cuban Revolution. We are reading everything you can think about revolution. And we are being inspired that one person can change things. So what's wrong with Rwandans? Why can't they change? What's wrong with them? And then we got inspired. Like I told you, I was going to Southern Africa. So when we met in Mukura's house, the Burundian ambassador, I was given a responsibility, that's at a personal level again, to go to Uganda and form a branch of RANU in Uganda. So my plans to go to Southern Africa were cut short. So go to Uganda and form Region B. And Uganda at the time, under Obote, was impossible. So, but I cut short that's at the personal level. Sometimes it's not good to talk about yourself in this but I have no choice. So I stopped going to Southern Africa for the job that Professor Orizo had organized. So I came back to Uganda.
And this is 80?
Yeah, 1980 or end 79. So I come to Uganda. I registered in the Road Development Center to do my postgraduate studies because I was still there. I was still a Ugandan, and nobody knew I had gone as a to Kenya as a refugee. So I came back, registered, continued my studies, but this time as a politician also, because I had a responsibility to form a branch in Uganda for the struggle. So Kenya was region A, so I was given the responsibility to form region B. And Uganda was very hostile to us. They accused us of all sorts of crimes, of being a menace guys, of being all sorts of things. So we were scapegoats for every failure that had happened in Uganda. And so, in good grace, where do you start? I've just come, I'm a student.
You don't have a lot of money?
Not a lot, any money at all, because I have returned. So where do I go? Where do I start? The good thing is then I had a home, the Road Development Center. So I had a hostel, so I had residence at least. So in that residence, in that place, I had to think hard. How do you create a political branch under Obote, watchful guys? How do you form an organization? And so I sat and thought I have failed. Everybody I approached at the time, my thinking, I approached people that were powerful in Uganda, whom I knew as Ugandans. So I went and spent a night at Augustine Ruzindana's place. Augustine Ruzindana was the first, they called him Inspector of Government in Uganda. IGG. So I spent a house in trying to convince him to join the struggle. He said, but you guys, you're mad. What's wrong with you?
Now, and for people who don't know Augustine Ruzindana, he's still a Ugandan.
Yes, he is. He has always been a Ugandan. So, but he was a Munyarwanda. So he gave me push off. I felt it. But he was honest, he was genuine. What do you want? We have everything here.
We have everything here.
Yeah.
As who?
As Banyarwanda generally. You see,
why do you want to go back to that little country?
That country that has no future. Then we had Fred, who was very well placed in the system.
In 1979?
No. The Fred was...
that's a bit later.
That's a bit later. Let me not mix up these issues. Ruzindana was somebody that I thought, because of his position, would pass form. It didn't work. I went to somebody called Chirenga.
And this is still 1979?
Yes. I went to somebody called Chirenga. He was an advocate. He had a law firm called Chirenga Ndozire Advocates, Rwanda, but an MP, well-known Ugandan. So I went to him, and he marries, we call him Ben Ruganga's sisters. You know Ben Ruganga's ambassador?
Yes.
So he marries the sister. I went to him, Emmanuel, to tell him. He looked at me. What are you talking about? Says, forget, we are Ugandans. This confusion in your brain. So I went low. I failed there. I looked up a fellow called Makaka. Makaka was living in Kawempe and is married to the daughters from Kajaho. The girls from Kajaho. I remember the names. Pokwamubana. He was married to those girls. I think they have an association that does things.
Yes.
Yes. They have. So he marries those. So I went to him as a Munyarwanda, living and powerful. He showed me the heels up.
Tells you to get out.
Not really, but I'm just I'm confused.
You're bringing problems.
Then I went to a fellow called David Kayondo. David Kayondo, yari Kayonde, but he called himself David Kayondo. He was working with the cooperative bank. And he had connected very well with the royal family in Uganda and what, and he was very, very powerful, very, very nice man. He looked at Tharcisse, what? So these are settle down, cool down, cool. So they called you a young man that has lost his direction, that is beating about the bush, that doesn't know what is going on. So I gave up the struggle on those. So I sat. I said, now where do you go? Now where else? Then fortunately, I started looking at Makerere University, the Rwandan student community there. And the first few people I met were very encouraging.
Who are they?
I met the late Dr. Bayingana, who was in medical school. Major Peter Bayingana.
Peter, yes.
I met, he was in the medical school, but we had been together in a Montreal secondary school, and he was a very interesting character. He could read huge books in a very short time, and he wasn't reading medical books. He was always reading the Shieldtech, he was reading huge novels, and he found time to read them and do his medical work. So I talked to him, he said, Then he mobilized all the fellows in Mulago Medical School, including the medical assistants in what. So that was a big starting point.
That's a huge victory.
Huge victory. You have made a breakthrough. Then from him, there was Beatrice Mukabaranga, I told you, in Africa Hall. You have Patrick Mazimhaka in the geology department. And so that handful of people gave you a sense of belonging. Then I met a fellow that changed my entire world in that field. A fellow called Canisius Muganza. He's the elder brother of Karenzi Karake and
General.
Peter Karate. Yes. He's the elder brother.
Why did he change your life?
And I'm going to tell you. It's very interesting indeed. Because I didn't know him. He was from Changwari. And that's where I should have started. When I was looking for a place in the hostel, I went to a public call box. I wanted to talk to somebody in the Bugorobi hostel to see if there were places, vacancies in the hostel where I could stay. Because they had told me there was some Banyarwanda community in that place.
When is this?
We are talking about 79, 80. So I talked to a fellow on the phone by accident. Then he's speaking good English. I said, this is who. Then he told me he was Peter Karake. That's a brother. So I had jumped a bit. That's a brother of Keke and Canisius Muganza. Then I told him I was looking for a host, blah, blah, blah. He said, but I have a brother teaching in Kororo SS. Then he gave me the name of Muganza. Because I was a part-time teacher in Kororo SS and Kitante Secondary School. So Peter Karake, very interesting guy. We have a long history together. Peter Karake told me to look for Muganza, his brother who was teaching in Kororo Secondary School. So I meet him, we link up. Then quietly after a few days, I whisper him the idea of the liberation, of the struggle. And the day I got his agreement. That's why I say it changed my entire life. Because I didn't have to do a lot of work. He was elderly. He was convinced. He was a convert before you talk to him. And he knew the Mazimhakas and the what, because Mazimhaka and Beatrice were ahead of me very far. So he is the one who did the background work to help us recruit Patrick Mazimhaka, help the Beatrices, another woman called Mukashefu, who was a Rwandan woman teaching in Kitante. So Muganza knew all these guys. So Muganza then contacted them. So we now got a much bigger group because of Kazinius Muganza. Later on, as I will say, when he went, I was using his house. Plot 10, Tafne Drive, just opposite our embassy, the Kampala, opposite the museum. So when he went into exile, he left me with the house. So, although I was still a student in the Lost Development Center. So I had the house, but but I was a teacher in Kitante, I told you. So I manipulated and got the house into my names. So I had the house, very big, and because the government in Uganda was paying very badly, I told you, the money was of a saucepan or 2 bunches of matoke. But they would give you sofa. Mm-hmm. They would equip your house, so you had the sofas like this, you had fridges in the house, but you had no salary. But there would be government property. So I had the government house with all those properties. That's how the Karakes, the KK, his brother, the PD, Damian, was staying in my house. That's where the big meetings of RANU were taking place.
Can I ask you, when we think about, the idea of liberation, mm-hmm. When you guys were forming RANU, did you ever think that it would be through force of arms, that you have to fight? It wasn't going to be through negotiation. It wasn't.
From the word go, we realized that Poko will not work. We realized it had never worked anywhere. Mudomo. So we realized that at the end of the day, you had to fight your return. From the word go, from the Robusta port meeting to the Renana, to the Mukuru house, the thing was that we are going to use this to get political support, to get our ideas. Every time on the Refugee Day, we distribute documents across the world. The UN was always filled with our documents, but we knew this would not take us anywhere unless we had some armed force to force the negotiations and make them possible.
But then none of you were soldiers. All of you were law students. Other people were geologists. Other people were matrons in university halls. Yeah. I'm sure none of you had ever fired a bullet. What was the plan?
The plan was interesting. We negotiated training program in Libya.
Negotiated? What do you mean negotiated?
With the embassies. There are embassies in Kampala.
Whose embassy?
The Libyan embassy,
uh-huh.
the Algerian embassy, and the Iraq embassy.
Who went there?
In those negotiations?
Yes.
You are talking about, I don't want this interview to be about me.
No, but that's a fact.
So
someone had to negotiate, someone had to
go
to make that decision.
There were few people in Uganda acting. Most of our bigger leaders like Ambassador Zeno, mm-hmm. was vice president, were in Nairobi.
Yes.
Most of our big mouth, powerful guys were in Nairobi or in Southern Africa. Mm-hmm. So in Uganda, we are still just a handful. So that would be me. That would be the first chairman, Gabriel Sebyeza, also known as the Asatuzi, a Mohindra who didn't want kingdoms. And the Patrick Mazimhaka, our biggest negotiator at all times in all events. So
How do these? Okay, maybe it's
Go ahead.
maybe it's normal for you, and you think, but it's not normal. It's not normal for a group of young men to knock on the doors of a sovereign nation, open the doors, walk in,
yes,
and even know, we want to negotiate. Who are you? What kind of guts do you
no,
have?
we want help. Like I tell you one mission I had when I went to the Russian embassy.
Uh-huh.
You had to have all sorts of
Guts.
guts. So I went and knocked. That's an example. With sweaty feet, dust, had walked. I think the diplomatic number plate was CD14. Can still remember. You had to know their embassy code. You had to identify their vehicles because we were operating in Uganda, and Uganda was dangerous for us. Like
Why was Uganda dangerous for you?
they thought they made us scapegoats all the time of all the failures in Uganda. So
But why would it be dangerous for your organization?
because we were friendly to the government of Habyarimana here.
Even the Ugandan government?
Yes. Yes. Or they didn't want anything to appear to be wrong between them and I mean, given the choice, they would rather have Rwanda rather than have a group of young fellows knocking on doors. So our only big supporter was the Burundi embassy.
Which is so interesting.
And Burundi embassy, Albert Shibura was a major, and he was very clear about
Who reached out to them first?
the Burundi.
Yes.
Ourselves, that's me and the Asabias and Patrick Mazimhaka. Patrick Mazimhaka, when we got him, he was smart. He could, and as a lecturer at the university, he had a good standing point. So if we went to negotiate an appointment, it was easy. Then there was the leg guys like me. I was his boss, but he was the man moving things around. Because for me, I was on the central committee. I was having a big title. He was the chairman of Region B.
That was you.
No, him. He was chairman of Region B of Uganda. He was the chairman of, and the late the brother of Rushanda, Frank Karamaga, was his vice. Beatrice Mukabane of Africa Hall was our treasurer. So that's the setup. So me, I was younger than them. So the contacts that they made, then we would follow and go to execute. So Patrick would negotiate the appointments. Somehow, then he would get an appointment. Like when we went to meet Obote.
Obote who?
Obote, the president of Uganda.
You went to meet him?
We met him, the three of us.
You,
Me, Patrick and Gabriel Sebieza.
What year was this?
This was Obote 2, when was this year?
So that's maybe 81.
Yes, sir. That was a very critical period because they were accusing us of so many things. So we went to meet Obote to ensure that they don't mix their politics and Museveni with us. For us, our intention is to return home, not be part of this program. Then he referred us to Rwakasisi. Can you imagine? And
So for people who, let's
go slow.
Again, you're making things that sound mind-boggling. You're making it seem so normal. We went to the Russian embassy. And then the other day after that, we went to visit His Excellency, the President of Uganda.
Yes.
So
somebody made contact for us to meet him.
Do you know who that was?
Sure.
Who was that?
It was the guy in his turn of security at the Iraq embassy. He was a Palestinian.
Yes.
And I think somehow, because these social contacts, I think Patrick Mazimhaka contacted him. So he made an appointment for us to meet this
Milton
guy.
Obote.
Yes. We met him in his place. He was putting on his slippers. He was smoking very, very heavily and drinking a drink called Matthews Rose.
Matthias Rose.
It was a small bottle with very wonderful wine. So he was drinking that and smoking all the time. So he told us, yeah, I know your people, you're blah, 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 blah.
What did he say?
That he knew about our struggle and that he was going to link us with Chironda Chivejinja and what, and workers for them to help us and to distance ourselves from the Musevenis and what. Yeah, so we got that kind of, otherwise they were hunting us like you have never seen. But for me, I was lucky in a way, and even Patrick, but Patrick had the contracting position was tricky for him. For me, I was later on a state attorney in the government. So on one hand, you are this, and the other, then you disappear into the
bushes.
Yeah, somehow you wouldn't tell him who you are. I was using fake names. I was called, my names were Alex Maka Motawa.
Maka Motawa.
Maka Motawa were my names in Arab and RANU business. In the Refugee Foundation, the Refugee Foundation, I was Joseph Rwigema. But in the official positions, I was Alex Maka Motawa. Motawa, we still communicate. Motawa, that was Mosh Dayan. The late Kanizoka, he had one eye, so we called him Mosh. Mosh Dayan, like the Zirian. Ta was me, that's Tharcisse. Wa was Paul Wabariki, the son of Semana, an engineer who still exists today. So we called ourselves, I called myself Alex Maka Motawa on the official documents of RANU. But in the Rwandese Refugee Welfare Foundation, which we used as a recruiting agent.
Yeah, so you've gone a bit fast. Remember, there are a lot of people who are born in Rwanda beyond the year 2000, so they don't understand all these things. I'd like to go back a little bit to put these things together. So in terms of your diplomacy, you already have reached out to the Burundians.
Yes.
They're very positive.
Very.
They give you all the support.
Or not all, but
as much as possible.
Yes.
Then you get the guts, you reach out to the Algerians.
Yes.
The Libyans.
Yes.
And the Iraqis.
Yes. And the Russians.
And the Russians. You are saying that you're the one who reached out to the Russians.
Yes, and then the East, what they used to call East German.
And the East Germans.
Yes.
What was your experience trying to get Russian support?
Very interesting. When there first time, who are you? Say so and so. I'd like to meet this, but you are speaking in the doors, in the window. They are not allowing you inside. So and so, just to give them the name. We have an organization called this and this. We would like to introduce it to the embassy and seek cooperation. And then they say, "Oh, you come tomorrow." When you come the next day, and they said you called, nobody answers. Then somebody comes and say, "I was here yesterday. You told me to." Then he sort of like got to hell. And then he said, but then he said, "You have a fighting force? You have soldiers?" Yes, I said, "Yes, we have soldiers everywhere." Where are they? I said, no, we don't disclose unless we talk to the military attaché here and we explain. I said, "Okay, we will contact you." They don't contact you. So you go another place. That's what happened to the East German embassy. That's what happened to the Algerian embassy. But at least the Algerians, because we had somebody working there.
They let you inside.
They let us talk. Then he made a proposal, asked them if they can give us support in military training. That excited them a bit. And because we had somebody working there, somebody, one of us, Augustine, he still lives here. He was working in our embassy in New York. He's here. He was working with that embassy.
The Algerians.
Yes, the Algerian embassy. So he made it easy for us to make appointments. I can still remember their vehicle, diplomatic number plate, CD27. So this was a very complicated period in the sense that in the morning you'd wake up with a lot of enthusiasm, things are moving in your heart. But on the ground, nothing really is moving. Until you got that guy in the Iraq embassy, but we found out later that he was Palestinian. He moved, he understood us very well, because I think the fact that he was a refugee himself, the fact that he was working for a foreign embassy, but he understood our cause better than most people. So sometimes we used him to make contacts.
What was his name? Do you remember his name?
I can't. Some Muhammad or whatever. But he was the only one, the fellow that could remember him are all dead. So, and my memory is very poor. Very soon I will start suffering from Alzheimer's, the disease, get memory loss and everything. But I can remember how he was helpful, but he was also, I don't want to say much about it. He used to like to bring girlfriends to my home. So that made it a bit easier for me also to take advantage. But if he brought some girls and I excused myself and left him in the house for a couple of days, one day he could come on his, like that. So we became on another level. So that was some diplomatic relationship of some kind also. And sometimes if we had problems connecting with some group of people, he would help us. Like he helped us with as I told you.
Obote.
Yes. Like he helped us to get authorization to take people for training.
Training?
Yes. To go and train in Nigeria, to go and train in Iraq.
To get Rwandans to go and train?
Yes.
For this army?
Yeah, for our small army of return. But it didn't work out because Museveni made it easy for us.
What do you mean he made it easy for you?
Because when in Tarehe Sita, 1981, when he went to the bush and our people joined him, it became easy to recruit and get free training rather than send them to Libya and Algeria and what. Why don't you send them to Museveni? Free training.
Was it a plan or was it by...
No, when it happened
providence?
Like that, when we saw it, we thought it was a better opportunity to train here, get all the trainings we need, instead of sending people to Algeria and Iraq and Libya. So we got free training from Museveni. So we had our own strategies, and I think Museveni also had his strategies because he got free fighters, voluntary fighters.
Now, you mentioned something, an organization as well called RAF, the Rwandese
Refugees Welfare Foundation. Yes.
What is the relationship between RANU, the Rwandese Alliance, and RAF?
The Rwandese Refugees Welfare Foundation is a foundation we set up to use it as a training and recruiting ground because you couldn't use a political group. So we formed the RWF, the Rwandese Refugee Welfare Foundation, got it registered officially by the Uganda government to be a civil work, an NGO operating for the welfare of Rwandan refugees. that is the organization that was really very, very, very strategic indeed. When you got the registration, nobody could touch us, because if they arrested your father.
Whose father? Mine?
Yes.
Oh.
When we went with the UNHCR representative to Nachivari, the late Unwin was then when they came back, they arrested him.
For what?
That he was doing politics in refugee camps, but we were using those to recruit.
So they arrested him for the right reason.
Yes, but for us, we were saying this is the RADWF. The guy was just going to mobilize the civil support for, and the UNWIN was very, very, the UNHCR representative was very, very adamant. He went to the ministry. I also went to the ministry, but under another car, because then I was a state attorney, government employee. I couldn't identify myself as a refugee fighter, but I connected with the minister of the minister responsible for refugees. The minister was Rwanyarari, the minister of culture, and he was married to a Munyarwanda woman from Nachivari, and he had a soft spot for us. So they raised the focus, because they said, no, these people are just on welfare of refugees, it has nothing to do with politics. So they raised him. And unfortunately, when they raised him, he went into exile shortly after. And so most of the fellows that were helping with the struggle, like him, and all disappeared. Patrick went to Nairobi and then later on to Canada. So I sort of stayed around with the new guys. And then the struggle continued, and
let's talk about, there are certain names that I think Rwandans have a great affinity for. One of the names is obviously Fred Rwigema. Another name might be Mwami the King Chijeri. Did you ever get to meet those men?
Sure.
And did you meet them as a politician? Did you meet them as a young person?
By the time I met them, I was an adult. I was in politics. How else would you meet those kinds of guys? See, you had to have some serious ability to meet those types of guys. And so we used connections that were very well known. Like those kinds of meetings, the best I can remember, other than the king comes in much later.
In the 80s, late 80s?
Yes, but he was on Uganda Road. That's where he was staying. And
why didn't you, if I may, why didn't you, when you were looking for the adherents of RANU, why didn't you, I would have thought that it would have made perfect sense to talk to the king.
RANU was anti-monarchy. In the founding documents, it's clear. And so we would not have wanted to appear to be quoting the king when we are against
the king.
So it was very, very tricky relationship. But I remember when we met the late Kabila.
Late which Kabila?
Kabila the father.
Joseph-Désiré.
Joseph-Désiré Kabila. When we met him in the heart, that was 3 blocks from Steakhouse. Steakhouse belonged to Mbungo, and Mbungo was a politician, he was one of us. So we met Kabila in the heart, and the contacts were made by, again, Patrick through that Iraq guy. So we met him in that restaurant called The Hut. And his background in Tanzania, his struggles, his what, he told us he had a movement. And we agreed that his movement would cooperate with us. I can confirm today that Kabila's promise to us was fulfilled up to the end until he became president.
What was his promise?
That he would cooperate and work with RANU at the time, but later on, of course, RPF.
Were you in that meeting?
Which one?
That meeting with Kabila?
Yes. Oh, yes, indeed. That's why I remember it very vividly. I was sitting there with his heart looking down like this, but he had very good ideas. Very interesting at the time.
Because one of the things that you find you hear about Kabila was that he was a political midget, that he was ideologically unsound. You make it seem like actually on the other side, he was not as bad as history will say.
Definitely not. I can confirm the time I had with Kabila Senior is that he had ideas, he had resilience, he had some vision. He was somebody you could work with. That's my assessment. I met him with the late Sebiyeza Gabriel and the late Patrick Mazimhaka in the Hut restaurant, just 3 blocks from Steakhouse, which was Mbungo's place. We didn't want to meet at Mbungo's place. We preferred a neutral place. And for me, I think everything he said, he fulfilled it. Those who worked with him when he became president can tell a different story of his managing. But his promise to work with us, he did. And his organization worked with us until RPF delivered him to power. So, as far as I'm concerned, he fulfilled his promises.
And now let's talk about Fred Rwigema, Gisa. He's obviously not one of the founding members of RANU. But did he ever become a member of RANU?
Of course. He was sworn into RANU by Patrick Mazimhaka in Y Flats, just next to Makerere University Hall, opposite Mitchell Hall. The only living witness now would be Jolly Mazimhaka, because Fred was sworn in as a RANU member by the late Patrick Mazimhaka. For me, he was too senior. I was so far junior, young, and not having easy access. But as I told you, we had Patrick Mazimhaka who was very smart. He could reach anybody, anywhere. And so somehow he brought in Fred.
Was it before Fred went to the bush or
Yes,
after?
yes.
It was before.
Yes, because when he went to the bush, he called us to say goodbye. So we went to...
But okay, let's pause. And why was he recruited?
Because he was a very interesting guy. We thought he was simple.
You thought he was simple?
A simple guy to deal with. Not sophisticated, not complicated. Easy to reach by those that could reach. Me, I couldn't. I was far too junior. So I let the bigger guys play the role. But he knew me, but we didn't meet, we didn't associate much. So the only person that was able to really bring him in was the late Patrick Mazimhaka. So they saw him in Y Flat. That's just above University Hall and opposite Mitchell Hall. So the only living witness I can talk
You
about,
said it was Jolly.
it was Jolly Mazimhaka. And so when he was going to the bush, I hope I'm not moving too fast.
No.
We were at Speak Hotel. Then we moved to pick him. We didn't know he had called us.
Who's we?
So he sort of had called.
No,
I think,
what I mean is you said.
I think he had called Mazimhaka.
Yes.
Yes. But Mazimhaka was with us, with me, and Jolly were having just a drink. So he called Patrick to go and pick him or listen to him. Then Patrick told him he was with me and Focus, your dad, and Jolly. We were just having an evening drink. We didn't know there was a big plan ahead. So then he told him with whom he said, no, let those come. Because although I was junior in terms of young and what, I had a job as a state attorney in the ministry. So I was not a small guy. So he knew me through that kind of information sharing. So we went to pick him. That's Patrick Mazimhaka driving. That was February 6, 1981. Patrick Mazimhaka driving, right-hand drive. Left hand was Jolly, his wife. Then Focus in Hayomja, your dad, on the right. I was seated in the middle, but I had a lot of space to myself. And I had taken a bit of scotch on the rocks. So I was comfortable moving, going to pick somebody and maybe have a chance to say hello. We didn't know we were meeting something very important. So we went and picked him from Bakuli, Nakulabi. So as we were joining the main road, but he had entered. So he was on the left. So I was switched in the middle. So your dad on the right behind Patrick. Me in the middle, seated there, comfortable with the drink I'd taken. And then Fred on the left. Both Fred and your dad had long legs. And by that time I was still small, very small. This thing hadn't come. And as we were joining the main road, people stopped us. When Patrick Mazimhaka, UWP 832, remember the vehicle very well. So they stopped us. There were potholes like graves. You go in, you come out. So as we were joining the main road, on one of those funny potholes, they stopped us. Then I think...
Who stopped you?
Some armed guys. Then we got scared. Now, your dad was stubborn. Focus was stubborn. He told Patrick to stop the car and remove the car and we ran. Then Fred said, no, don't try that. That's dangerous. So Fred jumped out very quickly and got this guy who had a gun here, like this. So the guy was pointing the gun up, but he let the bullets, but the gun fell. So Patrick jumped out. Focus jumped out. So I was in the middle there, but because I was relaxed, I removed the shoes. So one shoe stayed there up to today. I jumped out, and each of us ran in different directions. They shot in the air several times. So that time, 6 February 1981, I think Fred would have been killed. We were just lucky. And some of us, was the first time we got close to firing power. So we ran, scattered. So I ran to old Kampala, to Central Police Station to find my way forward to Kamwocha, where I was staying, Kira Road. Patrick ran toward Kampala Station and Jolly, and Fred ran also to the Central District. So we all ran different directions. But before Fred went out, this is what he told us. I can't paraphrase, it's not, in general terms, stop making the organization an academic organization. He said, send us soldiers, send us fighters. Stop making it an elitist, if I can interpret what he said. So they were blaming us generally of
becoming a talking shop.
Yes, talking shop, not practical. That's what they were choosing us of. And so he said, send us soldiers.
But then before, if I may, you know, one of the, you're telling a lot of stories about action, but I also want to fully understand some of the philosophy behind the action. RANU believed itself as a progressive, socialist, anti-monarchy
Yes.
Organization.
Yes.
Why?
It's written down in the founding documents.
Why did you choose that train of thought? Why didn't you, for example, become liberal? Why socialism? Why progressive?
You see, you go with the trend of things. What was popular at the time was to be progressive, was to be socialist, was to find a community that had equal rights. We believed in a democracy. Actually, kingdoms and what was an abomination for us. Because I think Article 4 something we say we're total against monarchism in the founding documents. We didn't believe in a birthright rights to rule other people by birth because you are born so and so's son or we didn't believe in it. And so you can see young people at the time reading books of Che Guevara, you're reading books of Marxism, Leninism, reading, and you see the people coming up to remove dictatorships, young people removing huge thing. That's what inspired us. There was some kind of inspiration from the socialism, from the communist thinking, rather than the capitalist. For us, capitalism was exploitation. It was a man eat man, eat yours and also eat what belongs to your neighbor.
Can I ask you?
By the way, today I still...
That's what I was about to ask you.
Even today I'm still against...
the same person?
I'm still against capitalism by any definition. Exploitation by one person to another. But I believe in social progress, in competitive politics, in the right to leadership, not by birth, but by action, by capacities and competence, not because of whose son you are or whose daughter you are. Even today.
Yeah, no, thankfully, Fred's request of finding young men to send, you listened.
Yes, and acted on it.
And you acted upon it.
Yes, very, very seriously.
So, when you were talking to young men who were not Ugandans, who really did not care about the Museveni's political fight, what were you telling these young men? That we're sending you to this bush to do what exactly? To
train for the return to our country. And we used, let me say again, we used the Rwandese Refugee Welfare Foundation
to do that.
Because we would organize large, huge meetings. And the headmasters at the time, if we didn't have them, we would never have got fighters. I'm talking about headmasters like the late, I reckon most of them are dead. Judas Gahitsi. We are talking about Karasira in Rwagikara. We are talking about Karani Siliveri. We are talking about Rushanda. We are talking about Frama. All the headmasters in refugee settlements. They would organize the students. They would organize the population for us because they were influential, all of them. Not only for their students, but for the general population. As headmasters in those places, they played a very crucial role in the recruitment process. I think without their support, the education would never. Karamaga, Nijoro, Karasira, Rwagikara, the Rwibasiras, the medical assistants, fellows who had influence in the community. They mobilized these, so you had a place where to talk to them through the Rwandese Refugees Welfare Foundation.
Now, so 81 up to Museveni takes power in 1986.
Correct.
So during this time, I'm sure you're still trying to do a little bit of work, although you've also said that a lot of your colleagues have left, have gone into exile. Then something happens in 1987, and that's when RANU then becomes RPF.
Yes.
It would seem that by 1987, RANU had abandoned much of its earlier ideological language and adopted the 8-point plan that then became the Rwandan Patriotic Front.
Yes.
What was and this is going to be my last question to you, what was the thinking behind the change? Why change something that looked like it had worked? You had the fighters, you had the different territories, you had the documents. Why change a winning team? Or was it winning? Was it losing?
This was not what you would call a winning team. This was an organization facing an immediate challenge. Because prior to that, all the workers of the organization were voluntary. And they were doing work part-time. We did not have permanent people working for the organization. That was one challenge. 2, it didn't have a fighting force in place. But now we had trained soldiers, including the big commander Fred, and many in the different battalions. So how do you bring them together? How do you create a coherent organization? In our document, I think Article 3 or 4, it said the alliance will change its name when 3/4 of its members of the leadership decide to change the name. It's in the document. And why? Because RANU, in a way, although it was a good founding name, had its own problems. It sort of sounded like Inari, the Tutsi, so-called Tutsi organization. So if you say RANU, they say, this is Inari put backwards. If you started from the other side behind, Inari, RANU was the same. So the name wasn't appealing. Also, the time was such that you had to get a smart name that appeals to most people. So many people proposed names, different names. But very interesting, the name that was adopted was a name proposed by an ordinary, not the intellectuals, not the military, but a guy called Ladislas Kanyeshochi, who was a teacher in Orchinga refugee settlement and a part-time mechanic. But he had risen in the ranks of leadership, so he was on the Central Committee. So among the names that were proposed, very many, movement, this and this. Then he proposed the name of RPF, the Rwandese Patriotic Front, and it got overwhelming support. This Stateless Kanyeshoki, I think Tito Rutaremara had proposed some names, but they all had something to do with movement. And the people are saying no movement, no, because it sounds like Uganda Patriotic Movement, NRM, and so people were, so Kanyeshoki Stateless, a peasant, he was a mechanic, but also a teacher in Rwamurunga Primary School. His name was adopted when he said, Rapias Ningotanyi Kweli Bakotane. And so his name was overwhelmingly adopted. And then the changes that took place were these. One, RPF was going to have a permanent working force. People worked exclusively for the organization. That's where the Tito came in. That's where the chairman, Charles Kabanda, came. They all had to come and work full-time for RPF. That was one. Then we created a fighting force, which was RPA, Rwandese Patriotic Army, headed by the late Major General Rwigema. He was the head of the RPA, not the head of the political organization RPF, because that role was given to Charles Kabanda as the first chairman of RPF. His vice was Ambassador Zeno Mutimura. Third in command was Tito Rutaremara, who was the general secretary. And then you had Nyumba for finances, you had all sorts of people coming in, but full-time workers for the organization. Then Peter Bayingana, I think, was assigned the military-civilian coordination. So we had a fighting force, you had with
the political force?
The political force.
And you had the coordination.
You had the coordination, the civilian and military coordination. Then the declaration of that was done in Canada on that day, because we didn't want anybody to say. So the declaration became internationally diffused. An organization has been born like this, with this and this, made in Canada on this day, 1987, because we didn't want it to sound like we're forming an organization in Uganda. So that's where it is. So most of the people who took a position then had to abandon their jobs and do full-time work for the organization.
You know, and this is, I had promised that was my last question, but I guess, you know, when you're telling these stories, and when I talk to older gentlemen about some of these stories, there's the Charles Dickens line, in the best of times, in the worst of times. It does seem that while those times were extremely challenging, that's also when I think we saw the best of us. You know, the ability to, in hard times, create something that, you know, now we are 2026. We're enjoying the fruits of something that started in 1979, that even started before that with the Inyenzi and the idea of we cannot accept to die and as stateless people. And so as someone who is enjoying the fruits of your labor, I want to say thank you. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of the generation of Rwandans and Africans, young Africans, who are enjoying the fruits of the sacrifices that you made, of the risks that your generation bore. I want to say asante sana, murakoze. these stories give us a sense of who we are and what we can do. Because, there's a saying, you guys don't have three heads. You were stubborn, you fought for a better world, for your children. And I hope that through this conversation, people will hear your story and realize that they too can fight for the betterment of their children to create a better world. And Mzee, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Let me conclude by saying one thing that is very, very critical. There is no power on earth, in my sense of logic and thinking, that would have defeated RPF. Never. Under whatever circumstances, there was no power on earth that would have stopped RPF from the victory it had. There were so many reasons which I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But let me give you just one. If a parent lost a child in the struggle, they sent the next child, the parents sent the next child to the front to fight. Said, your brother has died or your sister has died, go and replace him. So they knew the risks and they undertook the sacrifice. 2, you do not have to ask people to give you money that what? The old coins which old women held, they would remove it and give it as a contribution. When she had 30 cents or 100 francs, she would remove 50 from her, they call it ingotia, I don't know what you, skirt, where she has hidden, or in the pot where she has put, and send it to the struggle. The kind of commitment. You would not call a meeting and people are late. You would get people excited. So the headmasters, whom we should always honor, played a key role in sensitizing our people to join the struggle, and they joined it. There's no power on us, I said, that would have defeated the RPF, because the fighting cause was genuine and real. 2, the embarrassment if we failed was there. 3, the sacrifice in Uganda and the payback by Uganda government to the struggle. It was real. I have classmates who are involved in the struggle, the Chakabares, the Mandes, the what. I was in Kasese. This brigade, 322 brigade in Kasese, in Mukuyu. That group and the Chakaba, they would come and I was chairman of my branch in the Kasese, it was called Musenyi. They would come and give you feedback of what was happening. So the contribution of Uganda to our struggle was very critical in our success. Our contribution to their struggle for them to get the government, the Museveni government, was critical. So that's why I would pray that forever Uganda and Rwanda should be friends to eternity, because they sacrificed for each other in a way that took courage, money, and blood of both Rwandans and Ugandans. So there should be no power, no ego, nothing should stop that relationship from building even further and stronger relationships. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mzee.